Good afternoon, Dr. Croston. Good afternoon, class. My name is Francis Kasonde, and I'll be talking about Ebola in America. This has been a very interesting topic for me uh, due to the fact that there's been so many uh, unknown uh, scientific, political, and social discoveries concerning the threat of Ebola in America. However, this course has made it easier for me to actually come up with this topic as to why Ebola is a threat in America. Unlike previous facts of the Ebola threat is that according to a study from Drexel University, possibly 12% of infected victims never showed any signs of fever, symptom during the currently recommended 21-day of quarantine period. This suggests the recommended quarantine period is unduly short and may be dangerous for bus and plane passengers who sit next to people who have been exposed to symptoms of the Ebola virus. Granted, one study does not reliably prove anything, but it does suggest taking more caution, and the very caution is the very threat that has led many uh, academics, researchers, political uh, advocates of the Ebola virus epidemic in America, including policy experts, to have different views on how to address this threat. However, going forward, the country's healthcare officials need to ensure that their Ebola rhetoric matches the science of the disease. By this, I mean to say that there should be precise views that address the threat of the disease itself. They need to level with the public and concede that the Ebola threat, as with most major disease threats, are limited to medical history. By this I mean to say this includes a measure of uncertainty. There's been a lot of shortages that have created so much difficulties within the healthcare community and research community as well about providing these healthcare services. Americans, on the other hand, have received some. The latest outbreak of Ebola, which began a year ago, is the largest on record. This one being the largest on record, it certainly gives policymakers something to think about. Such a larger epidemic means that there's the latest outbreak of Ebola, which has claimed about 7,800 people, have been killed, continues to pose a major threat to people coming out of West Africa, people traveling to Europe, people coming to the United States, and who knows, there might be some people that are still experiencing Ebola symptoms. Almost all of these have been in West Africa. The latest figures from the World Health Organization estimated that the number of people infected by the disease in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea has now passed 20,000. Now that's a very large number to be concerned about. The current Ebola outbreak is a public health challenge and global concern, not only in West Africa, but definitely worldwide, regarding the spread of the disease, which is understandable. It is important for the business community, business development agencies to keep in mind that the risks associated with this disease in perspective by staying informed regarding the evolving situation, which is affecting the economic development of most African countries, because fear of the disease in this country, has hampered some of the exports from West African countries coming to the United States, as well as some of the goods exported from this country economically going to some places in Africa. That has slowed down, which is in some aspects affects economic trade, between the West and some the western part of Africa. It is important for business to keep this risk associated with this disease in perspective by staying again informed, taking this opportunity to better prepare themselves for a more challenging and situation. Prevention, policy-wise, on prevention and development of strategic measures to prevent this spread of Ebola is one of the important aspects of realizing how challenging and how difficult this threat is. This specific Ebola outbreak is believed by the researchers and other policy analysts who are specialized in this epidemic to have begun when a 2-year-old child living in Guinea believed to have contracted the virus died in December of 2013, I believe. And the disease then rapidly spread to neighboring countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone. This specific outbreak is the largest ever documented according to the World Health Organization. Now, any disease that breaks out in the world, in some parts of the world, and continues to spread to different other parts of the world, automatically becomes a threat to any civilized place, and by this I mean every place of human habitation. It becomes a problem. People are flying out of Liberia and other Ebola countries into the United States. That is a significant threat in itself. It shouldn't even be something that has to be proved scientifically, or any other means. It's just a threat in itself, because we know this is how the disease itself is moving from very concentrated regions to the United States. People flying out of Liberia and the other Ebola countries into the United States every day. Do you know how they screen passengers? And this is one of the important questions that I would like to raise to those who doubt how this disease is so much of a threat in every country, in Europe, in America, and some other African countries as well. People coming out of the infected regions, the only way they are tested is by taking their temperature. For those who travel, if I may ask, have you ever been in an airport in a third world country? It's not like flying out of JFK, or flying out of Heathrow, or flying out of some Western airport. It's the notion that people are safe to come to America from Liberia because they get their temperature checked in an airport is, in some sense, ludicrous, maybe for lack of a better word. The U.S. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control (CDC) recently predicted that if the virus continues to spread at the current rates, more than 1.4 million people will be infected before the outbreak is contained. But this prediction is a worst case scenario that does not take into account recent efforts by the international community to stem the spread of the disease. It is, however, a stark reminder for everybody, politicians, policy experts, researchers, and healthcare professionals, that the disease that the disease, if possible, including the collective response to the Ebola threat, is not fast and effective, the exponential transmission of such a threat will continue to go beyond borders, go beyond cities, and just affecting many lives and killing lives if nothing is done. That is why we need to, when we talk about the policies on how this can be prevented, we have to look at politics of prevention, because most of the times certain policies are affected by politics. That's why I would say politics of prevention, because if we begin to talk about prevention on a political level, it will stream its influence in terms of research funding, healthcare facility development, intervening in the international community, will begin to stream down from a political influential level down to other government agencies, which I think in that area it's spectacular to analyze the threat of Ebola in America in that sense. Going forward, the country's healthcare officials need to ensure that the Ebola rhetoric matches the science of the disease. I think I did mention this at one time. And it's important to consider that if prevention itself is going to work, then there is so much that needs to be done on the political level itself in order to prevent this threat from going forward in this, the threat of Ebola going forward into this country. The last thing that I want to talk about is that the current policy on Ebola is what I consider to be policy of uncertainty. The outbreak has sparked an international debate over the ethics of giving such untested drugs to the sick and of deciding who should get the drugs. So far, only 2 Americans and Spaniard have received what is known as ZMapp, and it is observed that one of the Americans has been improving, while the other one is unclear what the role of the drug has played in the life of this person, or it is believed that the person has died. In other words, this is to say that there should be precise research on the medication given to the people, rather than just having untested drugs given to the majority of the people. Finally, I want to say thank you so much for this time of this presentation, and I hope to give another presentation at a later date.